Hey there YouTube, it's your boy Lip It out here with another reaction video. Today we got Who Took This Photograph by Blame It on George. Let's get right into it, shall we? Hit it.
Hey guys, Blame It on George here. So last year I made a video about disturbing lost media topics on Reddit. And one of the standouts from that video was 9/11 lost media. There is a community of people online called the 9/11 Archive that documents photos, videos, and anything they could find related to the event.
Oh, this is interesting. I think the only similar topic that that I'm aware of was there was one Times. Was it a Times article? There was a Times video that was out. Basically, there was like you have the cover page for the Times magazine, and it was the falling man, which is like the one still image of a man mid-fall from the towers, basically, and it's like completely upside down. Leg is kind of bent, and it's basically like a straight missile to the ground, and I think they even mentioned like the creative process for that like cover page was just them going through all the photos, and then because they were taking as many photos as the situation was developing, so they found one photo. It was like, this is it. This is the photo that's gonna be on the cover page. And what was interesting to me was like the way that they put that up as the cover page for the Times. I think it was the Times magazine, and it was quickly adopted by like so many other newspapers that just kind of took the image and just put it on the front page. So I can imagine that, for preserving like media and for preservation of information, I can see that there'd be like a, massive effort to basically be like, you don't want information that's lost to time. So I understand that is interesting.
Now I want to say upfront that they are very respectful about the subject matter,
yeah,
and are doing this for historical purposes.
Right. Again, because I think, look, there is obviously the part where you have to be respectful to the people that were affected by the tragedy, but at the same time, it is also a part of your, it depends on the culture, and it depends on the duty that comes with preservation of these events, 100%, because it's not just for you or the person that was involved in the accident or involved in the situation. It's more about telling the future generations, hey, this did happen at this point, at this time, never forget it.
Thousands of people, because that's how massive the community has gotten, but for the most part, they seem to really respect the gravity of the situation they're dealing with. Some time ago, one of the founders of the 9/11 Archive community, Between Two Towers, reached out with one of the craziest image mysteries I've ever seen. Do you guys recognize this image? It shows three men at a business conference in the North Tower of the World Trade Center on the morning of September 11th.
North Tower, okay.
And I'm told it's one of the biggest 9/11 media mysteries. The story goes that this image was first mentioned in a May 2002 New York Times article by author Kevin Flynn. The article is about accounts from survivors of the attack on the World Trade Center's North Tower and the friends and relatives of the victims. One passage reads, Peter Alderman, victim, Bloomberg LP. Mr. Alderman, a salesman for Bloomberg LP, was on the 106th floor of the North Tower attending a conference at Windows on the World. His picture and that of a colleague, William Kelly, were taken at the conference that morning, and the photographer left with the film just a short while before the plane struck. Now, although this image wasn't shown in this New York Times article, the author, Kevin Flynn, made a book called 102 Minutes, which does show it in black and white.
Okay.
He gives a slightly longer description, and at the bottom, the photo is credited to Bloomberg LP. The mystery, therefore, is who exactly took this photo? Who is the photographer? It's quite rare, and even a bit unusual, for someone to take such an interesting photo like this and be completely unknown. I mean, even being in the World Trade Center right before the attack and surviving would warrant some type of recognition, or at least an interview. Moreover, every other photo featured in Flynn's book is appropriately sourced, except this one.
Hi, I'm Between Two Towers, BTT is usually what most people call me. I run the YouTube channel of the same name. I'm co-founder and moderator on the 9/11 Archive subreddit. And basically, my knowledge of the photo starts back in like 2008 or 2009, somewhere in there. I stumbled across it on a message board. It was just in a random, rarely seen 9/11 images thread, and it really just stuck with me. Just seeing that photo and the little story attached to it, the photo of the three men on, at the top of the North Tower in the restaurant, as it was often described. I reached out to every person in the community that I could find that like might know anything about it, and every person I would talk to, it's like not that many people. Like everyone's seen the picture of the three men, like at least in the community. It's one of those things that just everyone's like, oh yeah, I saw that, but no one knew anything about it. And that just kind of kept sticking with me, and it just became a crusade where it's like, I need to find out, to the point where I exhausted every possible online resource.
Could it be that it's actually a very interesting situation? There are two possibilities. The two obvious possibilities. Either A, the photographer did actually survive, was able to leave the towers before the towers collapsed, and distributed a photo, was put for publication, and then didn't want to be, in the public spotlight anymore. Could be from guilt, could be from other, a couple of reasons. Makes sense. Why, considering the circumstance? Because it's always like a feeling of like survivorship guilt. It's like I took the photo, but the people in the photo are no longer alive just a few minutes after I took the photo. Could be that. The second possibility is the camera, like the footage was found, but the cameraman didn't make it. Like they were caught up in the World Trade Center accident. It could be that later investigation, they found the camera, they got the SD card out, and then probably recovered the data. That's more likely.
The conference was called the Waters Financial Technology Congress 2001, and it took place on September 11th at 8:30 a.m., with most attendants arriving as early as 7 a.m. It was hosted in one of the rentable spaces on the 106th floor, which was part of Windows on the World, the famous restaurant that occupied the 107th floor, with ballroom and conference spaces on the 106th floor. We do know that the last 4 people to leave the Windows on the World were Michael Nestor, Liz Thompson, Jeffrey Wharton, and Richard Tierney at 8:44 a.m., mere moments before the first plane struck at 8:46. This means that this mysterious photographer must have left sometime before the final
Correct.
4, likely around the time the conference started.
Right, so at least they would have had some time before the accident. So this is going on the assumption, one, that the person survived. This is the first assumption he's going with, I guess.
Now, some of you may be wondering if a person could make it all the way down from the 106th floor to ground level in the morning in a matter of minutes.
Yes, right?
But it's worth examining the World Trade Center's elevator layout. To simplify traveling, each tower was divided into 3 layers. These green elevators took visitors only to the beginning of each layer, floors 48 and 78.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. Oh, wow. Okay. This makes sense. There's some escalators to some places there as well. Interesting. Oh, wow. So they have one direct elevator access all the way to the ground, and then you had like 3 different tranches or layers that they had to go through. And then to go from one layer to another layer, you have to either use an escalator, or you have to take one of these green ones, these express to the Sky Lobby Expresses. But there may be only, so effectively, if you wanted to travel the most amount of distance, there were 2 of them. There was either the red and the green. The third one here is only small. It's only for half the space till floor 48. If then the 106th floor is somewhere here, your only 2 options are these blue ones to take you to this level, and then you got to wait for these other elevators. Yeah, I have to kind of rescind my older statement, 100%. I don't think it's possible to leave in a few minutes. I did not know this.
Also known as the Sky Lobby.
I think it could just be because my bias, like, you're used to, like, newer places just having, like, single elevators. Like, for example, when I went to the Burj Khalifa, like Burj Al Arab, it is definitely like, a couple of elevators, but they take you from the bottom to the top. Like it's just 1, 2, or 3 elevators. That's it. There's no stopping in between and then transitioning to a different elevator. It doesn't happen. I'm guessing back in 2001 that was the case. I don't know.
The blue local elevators then took visitors to whatever floor
was
within
not aware
that
of that.
segment.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the red express elevators only took persons from the very top 107th floor to the ground floor in about a minute.
This actually makes much more sense in the context of like when like you disable like a plane actually impacts. You can see why people are trapped in like different levels, because even if they wanted to go, they really didn't have many options.
In fact, there's a video from the year 2000 that showcases this. There are 2 ways the photographer could have left the building. First, they could have taken the blue elevator to the 78th floor, and then from there, they'd have access to the green elevators, which would have taken them to the ground
Or the escalator
floor.
to go to the next level.
The issue with this route is that taking a blue elevator nearly 30 floors down on a Tuesday morning inside the World Trade Center without, a dozen of stops would have been pretty busy.
Right.
The second route involves the photographer going up to the 107th floor by the staircase and then swiftly taking the express elevator all the way down.
Not likely.
However, this also isn't that
It's unlikely,
simple.
right?
So the thing about the leaving the 106th floor is that it's a bit weird in how you would normally think of it, because the 106th floor is essentially an extension of the 107th floor. They're all intended to kind of be one floor, because you have staircases in Windows on the World, which is technically the 107th floor, that connect the 106th. And with that, you have the 3 main staircases that most people know about, A, B, and C. Then there's also the staircase in the ballroom. And then there's a service staircase for staff. So from everything I can find, that the main ballroom staircase likely would not have been open because that goes up into the main Windows on the World restaurant, which would not have been open at that time.
Okay.
The 3 people that I've talked to personally, one of which I did an interview with, Joe Colity, I was kind of talking to about some of the upper floors, and they kind of said that realistically, elevators is how you would get around. You really wouldn't take the A, B, or C stairwell. Those were really reserved for emergencies. And I've also read in like testimonies and like anecdotes that most people wouldn't prefer to use them anyways, because they were often disused outside of fire drills, and they would often be dirty. And in some cases, I've heard that they would be cluttered sometimes on those upper floors, but that I haven't been able to find anything to confirm.
Nevertheless, the photographer did ultimately find their way out and managed to escape within an inch of their life.
Ooh, that is a very big assumption.
Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for the man in the photograph and everyone else who attended the conference.
Okay.
This photo was first mentioned in the New York Times article written by Kevin Flynn. Flynn would later recall the photo on the 2021 podcast Missing on 9/11, but stated that he never knew who the photographer was.
At least one photo was taken at Windows on the World on top of the North Tower, only 15 minutes before Flight 11 hit the tower. It shows 3 men at the Risk Waters Financial Technology Conference. It was taken by a Bloomberg photographer who left right before the plane hit. I don't know the photographer's name. Did they take any other photos that morning? I don't know. Neither does Kevin Flynn.
I never had the name of the photographer.
Yeah,
There was someone who took some pictures and then had them developed, and it may have been that Bloomberg just wanted to protect the privacy of that person. Maybe
Possible.
They were upset about having been there and escaped or whatever. But anyway, I never got that name.
Well,
After Flynn's book was published, this photo seemingly fell into obscurity. It wasn't until about 10 years later that the photo would resurface on a French YouTube video about Chris Hanley's 9/11 call shortly after the plane hit the first tower.
Flight Department 408 West for you.
Yeah, hi. I'm on the 106th floor of the World Trade Center. We just had an explosion up here. Okay, 106th floor. What building are you in? So 1 or 2? 1 World Trade. All right. 1? Yeah. Yeah, there's smoke and there's about 100 people up here. And it's tight.
Hanley was the third person seen in the photograph, alongside Peter Alderman and William Kelly. The photo was scanned from the 102 Minutes book and was posted online for the first time. About a decade later, the photo really grew in popularity after the French YouTube video was posted onto r/lastimages. In 2021, William Kelly's sister, Colleen Kelly, testified about their issues with the U.S. government not helping families and first responders to the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee. Kelly was the co-founder of the September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows, comprised of relatives of victims of the attack. In her statement, she said the following: "Good morning, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Grassley, members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to share my experience with you today. I am a family nurse practitioner in the Bronx, New York, and the mother of 3 grown children. My younger brother, Bill Kelly Jr., was killed in the North Tower of the World Trade Center on September 11th. Bill didn't work at the World Trade Center. He happened to be at a 2-day conference, an event he had repeatedly asked his boss to attend. Bill's boss acquiesced, so in a twist of fate, Bill was at the wrong place at the wrong time. In a second twist of fate, Bill was photographed inside the conference center on the 106th floor early that morning. The photographer's camera broke, and thankfully she left the building at about 8:30 a.m. and headed to another assignment."
That's interesting. So a little bit more tidbit of information. Okay.
The photographer's camera broke, and thankfully she left the building at about 8:30 a.m. and headed to another assignment. This is currently the only known description of the photographer, and it's not a lot of information. According to Kelly, this person left not because of the conference starting, but because her camera broke and she had another assignment to attend to. Interestingly, she also refers to the photographer as a she. How Colleen Kelly found out about this information really isn't clear. She's spoken about her brother and this photograph several times in past interviews, implying that she saw the image very soon after 9/11, but for some reason, this statement in 2021 is the only time Colleen Kelly called the photographer a she. Now I'm just speculating here, but it almost seems like she knows who this person is, and may have purposefully kept her identity under wraps for whatever
I think
reason.
that's possible.
Maybe this was supposed to be secret,
Yeah.
and Kelly slipped up this one
Maybe.
time. Or it was all just a coincidence. I'm really not sure what to make of her statement here. Now here's where the investigation really begins. There are 3 companies of interest: Bloomberg, the New York Times, and Risk Magazine, who actually hosted the Waters Technology Conference. Let's start with Bloomberg.
Well done.
When the photo was posted on Reddit, Bloomberg took notice and released their own article on the eve of the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Unfortunately, Bloomberg credited the photo to the Reddit post, so not even they know who took it.
Wow.
Not only that, but when Bloomberg was contacted by Between Two Towers, they bluntly stated that they did not have any photographers at the event. Moreover, when the New York Times article that credited the photo to Bloomberg was brought to their attention, they were just as confused. They double-checked their archive and could not find this photo. Next is the New York Times. The closest person to this photo is Kevin Flynn, who wrote the 2002 article. Unfortunately, efforts to reach him have been futile, and it's unclear how he discovered the photo in the first place. Thankfully, the director of the New York Times' archive licensing, Lori Reese, was contacted. According to her, their archives do go all the way back past 2001. Despite this, they did not know the origin of this photo. Regarding Risk Magazine, They were a subsidiary of Risk Waters,
Oh,
and it was discovered that they had hired a photographer for the event. His name was Ron Jotz, and he was also at the same conference in the year 2000. He was supposed to be there for 9/11, but was fired the week before.
Okay.
An article detailing Jotz's story tells the following. September 11th, 2001 was a beautiful fall day. There wasn't a cloud to be seen in the perfect blue sky. I was supposed to be shooting that day for a magazine, but the assignment was pulled the week before. That lost job saved my life. The client was a financial magazine, and they called me to cover an industry conference that was held annually at Windows on the World on the 106th floor of the World Trade Center 1. I had shot the conference the year before for the same client. When I called the editor to confirm, I made a few suggestions on how I could shoot the job and make it better than the previous year. I wasn't argumentative, just trying to make professional suggestions. The editor blew up and said, "If you don't want to do it my way, I'll find someone else to shoot it." I lost the job. I would have been on location at 7 in the morning. No one at that conference survived.
Wow. Weird how life takes its different turns and twists.
So
isn't it?
Ron Jotz was supposed to take photographs of the conference, but was replaced by a different photographer.
Do we have any information on that?
Jotz was contacted, and this is what he had to say.
The part about that strikes me odd, to be honest with you, is, professional photographers will be prepared for something going wrong, and you always have to back up.
Right.
It would never be in the car down at ground level for a job like that, because you're going to miss a half hour of the conference at least.
Yeah.
Getting your part or getting, so that just strikes me as odd.
That is correct. I think you've definitely gone to enough events where it's kind of like, you already have professional photographers there, like even for weddings or any like major events. And if your equipment breaks down, you better have backup equipment and just immediately get right back into shooting, because you don't want to miss the moment. You don't want to miss the points in the meeting where you should have taken photos of. 100%. I agree with that. As if someone who's professionally doing photography, they would have their backup equipment with them, no doubt.
You just grab your second body or your second
And then
flash
just
or whatever
go on.
and continue on
Right.
with your job and fix it later. So not to say anything, I don't know the circumstances or anything, but that part of it just strikes me
Odd,
as
yeah.
odd.
Yeah.
Jotz's statements are interesting because Colleen Kelly, the sister of William Kelly and the co-founder of the September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows, stated that the unknown photographer left the building due to a camera malfunction. But according to Ron Jotz, no photographer would have done that. They would have simply brought a backup camera, more film, or generally would have been more prepared. Regardless, Ron Jotz does not know which photographer replaced him on that fateful day. But a few days after speaking to him, Ron reached out to Beyond Two Towers and said that he found some paperwork about the assignment which mentioned the name of the Risk magazine editor who Ron got into a disagreement with, John Lloyd. This editor still works at Risk magazine and is now the director of production.
Okay.
Because he was working on editing the September edition of their magazine that morning, John was one of the very few Risk employees who was not in attendance at the conference.
Huh.
Beyond Two Towers was able to get in contact with John, who vaguely recalled the disagreements with Ron.
Okay.
And when asked about the photo, he stated he wasn't able to find any record of it in their archive, but also stated he had never seen it before or knew of its existence. John did state that the Risk magazine archives are limited, and most of their physical archives were lost in a move in 2012.
Yeah, we're not very surprised.
But being that he was the lead editor and one of the few remaining Risk employees, it should be safe to say that the image likely did not come from them. So to summarize, we don't know who took this photo, why this person left when they did, or why they seemingly want to remain anonymous.
I wonder if it's a one-man or like a one-woman job. It is interesting to think that The other possibility I thought was maybe them being stuck in the tower, and then the camera, like with the micro, like the card basically still. I don't even know. I think it was was it micro SD cards back then, or was it film? I'm not exactly sure, but whatever the case, whatever was there in the body. Because if they said they have to develop the photo, because I'm still thinking it's micro, like SD cards, micro SD cards, as the recording's going on here. But if it was film, he's right. You won't really have time to remove the film, put it in a new body. You won't. Assuming you have a backup, camera with you as well. I wonder if it would be like a one-person job, or maybe like there is like an assistant who also helps set up the lighting, or maybe something else. And it's possible the photographer never left the tower, but since there's a damaged camera and they're running on the backup, it could be that the cameraman may have sent his assistant or someone else to go down and maybe like get a replacement or a fix for it, and then come right back up later, just in case the secondary backup camera also didn't fall apart. And whoever was the second person who left, maybe the person who survived and then developed the photo and released it. But being anonymous, I don't know. I'm trying to come up with something, but from the information that's provided, it's unlikely it came from the three major sources, so that's obvious. But then the question obviously remains, who released it then?
Again, it's difficult to believe someone would capture such a fascinating photo and not press for any type of recognition, let alone monetary gain.
Right.
It's also not known how Kevin Flynn came across this photo for his New York Times article. Did the photographer anonymously message it to him?
Yeah, could be.
Did Kevin Flynn discover it elsewhere that we just don't know about? It would be nice to know where he first discovered the image. That could be a huge lead. But I get the sense that the photographer wanted to remain anonymous.
Most likely.
9/11 was obviously an incredibly traumatic event for a lot of people. I know a lot of people my age look at it more historically, but to take that photograph and make it out of the World Trade Center, probably within an inch of their life, must have been deeply disturbing. Maybe the photographer posted it somewhere just to get it off their shoulders and be done with it.
Right.
Or maybe they were robbed of the recognition they deserve for taking such a photo. Anyways, I thought this was a cool mystery I want to share with you all today. If you have any leads, ideas, or even recollections of seeing this photo elsewhere, feel free to drop a comment down below.
Okay.
2 days after the last time we talked, Peaceful Tomorrows actually reached out to me. The lady I spoke to was very polite, and I had said, we want to know who the photographer was and like more about them. She cut me off politely and asked me if I was aware that Peaceful Tomorrows actually had participated in an episode of the Serial podcast. And I was aware that Peaceful Tomorrows was working with them. They had made a Facebook post about like a month ago, but like I totally glossed over a tiny piece of information in there that they had. And that was that they retell the same basic version of the story, but when the narrator kind of describes a little bit after Colleen speaks, she specifies that Bloomberg, they had hired a photographer for that conference, and that the photographer had taken photos, plural. And hearing more about Colleen's personal experience after 9/11 and her investigating what happened to her brother, I guess she got a hold of the photographer either through Bloomberg or maybe through a colleague of her brother's who, would have known maybe who it would have been. And she spoke to that photographer personally, and then even specifically mentioned that she studied more of that photographer's photos, implying that not only did the photographer have additional photos that was sent to the family, but in addition to that the photographer had further photos that Colleen did in. So I would say that stands to reason that possibly that not only is there this photo from
there are more photos that are still unreleased.
At least a couple more.
Okay.
And that's incredibly fascinating and probably a huge milestone in the investigation.
Okay, so they're aware. The photographer did. Okay, so I stand corrected. The photographer did survive. Not only did she survive, she still has more photos. Oh, so that's good to know. Okay, so at least that kind of explains a lot more about it. And yeah, that's about it for this reaction. I thought this was like a cool little video to kind of do a reaction to. It was fascinating as it was a mystery. Didn't really think it was solved or resolved. And at the end, they kind of came to a conclusion. The person might still be out there. And they're aware of who the person was who took the photo. And there might be even more photos available. So that's a good thing. But yeah, that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe. And I will catch you beautiful bastards in the next one. Peace. Take care. Nice.